All right. So Leonardo da Vinci, um, definitely one of the most famous artists who has ever lived. And maybe it's a little cheesy that I'm picking Leonardo da Vinci, but art is something that has been deeply personal to me throughout my life. I began drawing at a young age, not much unlike him, and I've always been able to express myself through art, and I think that was something that I, Leonardo, and I had in common. Um, but not only that, he was an extremely diligent worker and very skilled. So let's get into a sort of a little brief history of Leonardo and the reasons why he's my favorite. So Da Vinci's works were limited, but still and nonetheless were they considered the epitome and of mastery in expression in art. So before Da Vinci had painted these paintings, nobody had really captured expressions and I guess the essence of human emotion quite like he did. And through that, uh, obviously, he became very famous. But that's something that really sparked my own interest because, I mean, I've looked at his works, I've studied his works, and personally, I've also been really deeply connected with like faces. I love to draw faces, and I also like to draw bodies, and I think that was something he also really loved. So it's just another like parallel I found between himself and I, and that I really thought was cool. Um, yeah. So Da Vinci was born on April 15th, 1452, and he was born out of wedlock to his mother and father. This wasn't actually something that was really typical for the time or really like kind of frowned upon, to be honest. I don't know if anybody's read the Scarlet Letter, but I mean, this was kind of in that time frame as well. A different part of the world, nonetheless, kind of still same principles applied. Anyways, had he not been treated as a legitimate son by his father, he might not have been educated the way in which he was. And I'm not saying that that would have made it so that Leonardo never became a famous artist, but I do think it may have taken him longer to rise to prominence because he wouldn't have as many resources. His father had a lot of resources devoted to his early childhood education. He was taught languages, he was taught math, he was taught history, he was taught art, he was taught war strategy. There was many things his father provided to him that, if he had not been legitimized, would not have been an option for him. And I think that certainly made a difference in the way his life went. So Da Vinci was known. He only believed things that he could see with his own eyes. He really believed in the power of observation. So much so, he, you could say, he was an atheist, and I don't think this is something he actually expressed through in his life, but he only believed things in the ways which they could be perceived. He believed the way to find the truth out about something was to watch it, and um, it's kind of like the saying, "See it to believe it." And that's something I think is true, and I found it very interesting when I was starting to really research into him. That was something that was absolutely a part of his philosophy. So Da Vinci kept tons of notebooks, tons of them, just documenting everyday things that he could observe. This is something I thought was really, really, really cool because I guess I kind of did the same thing in high school and just, well, not now I don't do it anymore, but I used to do this when I was a kid. I kept books with drawings and notes or whatever, drawings for my girlfriend, stuff like that. I don't know. But it's the same thing that he did. And through it, he kind of figured some things out. And some famous sketches are known. I don't know if you guys seen the one with the guy and the circle around it and the many different angles. Yeah. So some of the drawings from his notebooks have actually become famous. Speaking of famous, here are some of his famous works. The Last Supper, which was done from 1495 to 1498, and the Mona Lisa, which was painted and finished actually in the last year of Leonardo da Vinci's life. So kind of odd how the last painting he ever painted became one of the most famous. I guess it was like he had finally reached a skill level that he was could be considered mastery. Some pretty interesting works there. Not only did Leonardo have incredible artistic skill, but he was a well-known engineer slash architect as well as mathematician. Although he didn't really begin to study math till the later years of well, till when he was in his 30s. He still lived till he was 67 years old, so he spent quite a good amount of time learning and practicing math. It was something he began to love. Many people who lived around him during the time said. So one thing that's really cool about Leonardo is that he was always a well groomed person and always liked to keep his clothes bright and colorful, and that's not something that was really seen at the time. So he was definitely a standout character, and some people might have even said that he might have been a homosexual or that he was a vegetarian. There's lots of different things out there said about him. It's funny how we know so little about one of the most famous people who's ever lived. Um, yeah. So I'm about to wrap it up here. Da Vinci definitely possessed a very diligent spirit. He was a hard worker. His works will always be remembered 110%. And even if they deteriorate, people will always know his name. He will never be forgotten. So that's why he's my favorite.